Welcome back to Pivot Points. I'm your host, Dave Allen, founder of Brand Pie, the brand consultancy working with businesses to deliver impact at pivotal moments in their journey. Piers Linney is a name you might know from Dragon's Den or Secret Millionaire, but his wider career journey paints the fascinating portrait of a multi-talented, resilient and forward-thinking entrepreneur. Currently the co-founder of Implement AI, he's a fascinating individual who shares his expertise on the role of AI in the future, the impact of mentors and social capital, the importance of learning from your failures, and much, much more. So, really excited today to be talking to Piers Linney. Piers, why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience and give people a sense of your amazing career?
Well, where do I start? So I'm of West Indian heritage. To start there, really. People wonder where I'm from sometimes. Mum's from Barbados. My dad, who's no longer with us, was from Manchester. I grew up born in Stoke-on-Trent. Grew up in the north of England, though, in a mill town, literally in the Pennines, where the Industrial Revolution started. So I was fascinated by the entrepreneurs and Industrial Revolution. Really, that's why I got interested in kind of business. But my background then really was, I went to a Fail My 11 Plus, went to a pretty terrible school, to be honest with you. And then I managed to pull myself together, got into university, did a law and accounting degree. And then through a whole different podcast, I managed to become a lawyer in the city. And then a banker in the city at Credit Suisse. I did that for about 3 or 4 years, in the dot-com kind of boom time, really. I left, started dot-coms for the crash. And then I was in sort of internet, sort of Web 1, technology. And then I went back into sort of finance, started my own business, kind of built that. And then all the time, I've always been in business. So building them, investing in them, starting them, side hustles, as they call them these days. And some grew, became quite big. We can talk about that, 40, 50 million of revenue kind of size. And then I became an operator, which we can talk about as well, which was quite a pivotal moment in my life. And then I've always been sort of investing in technology, media, telecoms, and always to me, it's kind of the new thing. So it was cloud technology. It was, it's this kind of thing, video conferencing, a bit too early into that market. Additive manufacturing. I'm a chairman and co-founder of Atherton Bikes, one of the world's leading additive manufactured bike companies. AI, we can talk Implement AI. And then through that, really, I was sort of picked up because of my background. There aren't many people who have my kind of background, really, in terms of where I started. I was asked to be a mentor for the government, for young black men and black boys. And then through that, some researchers spotted me. I was a Secret Millionaire on Channel 4 in 2011. And then I guess because of that, I was picked up to become a dragon on Dragon's Den, which was quite a surprise. I did that for 2 seasons. But the thing is now, they keep replaying it. And during COVID, they couldn't record it, so they replayed the whole lot again. So people who were quite young actually still sort of recognise. So I'm best known for being a dragon on Dragon's Den. But my background, which surprises some people, is that I'm actually a qualified solicitor, venture capital, corporate finance lawyer, an investment banker at Credit Suisse. I did LBOs, cross-border M&A, and I've been an entrepreneur, really, and I still am. Still starting businesses, working on some work, some don't. Quite a prolific investor. Again, some of those work, some of those don't. Typical portfolio experience. So I've got a very broad background, quite horizontally, lots of different things. And over the years, I've come kind of vertically quite good at lots of them. And I'm still learning.
Fantastic.
Oh, and I've probably mentioned, actually, I was on the board of British Business Bank, people during COVID. So all the bounce back loans, C-bills, that was an interesting time as well, just to see and learn a lot about how SMEs, scale-ups, access to finance, the issues with it, and how you get 90 billion of facilitated finance into a market in 18 months.
I mean, that's an incredible set of achievements. And it sounds like your first pivotal moment happened in your teen years, where you got your act together. We both went to comprehensive schools, and they're not the sort of environment where necessarily folks like you and I thrive. And I remember my dad at 17, because I was slightly wayward. I remember my dad at 17 really sort of woke me up. What woke you up? What was the sort of thing that happened in your teen years that you decided, I'm going to go down this path and put the energy and effort into your life?
So I was very capable, but the word that always came up in my reports was complacent. I kind of knew that, and I knew I could get ahead quite quickly. but I didn't always put the work in. And I found my 11 plus because, I didn't want to bother learning about verbal reasoning, and it didn't interest me. So I didn't. And then I could have messed it up. And, if you've got a West Indian mother, failing exams is not a good plan. It's quite a dangerous hobby. And then I went to it was high school actually. And in a way, I did thrive there in a way, because at the grammar school, I may have just been another student. But at my school, I did quite well in my O levels eventually. I did some of them twice, but eventually I did quite well, and I was quite good at everything. I'm quite good at sport. I was good at anything from maths to history. My favourite subject was history, so I kind of thrived there in a way. But my mum is kind of real Windrush generation. Came over early 60s to become a nurse and work in the NHS. So did her sister. And my dad was a Mancunian working class lad from Cheetham Hill, but very bright. My dad, he passed away a few years ago, but he spoke 7 languages and Russian fluently. He could do Russian dialects because he learned that in naval intelligence to interrogate Russians in the event of war. But so I was expected to go to university, and it dawned on me that if I didn't get into college doing A levels, I wasn't going to get into university. So I managed to get into college. And then even in college, I was doing maths. I hated it, dropped it. And I did law at nights. And I realised I did law, history and economics. And I love law. And that's when I started thinking, maybe I should become a lawyer. And then, of course, because I dropped an A-level, I had to struggle to get a place in university. And my journey, think about it in many ways, is there were pivotal moments in my journey where somebody gave me a chance. And I always say, and that was in Manchester University, the people in that interview. When I tried to become a lawyer, it was very, very difficult. One firm gave me a chance. I still know the people today who interviewed me to this day. And then again, become a banker, I really struggled with my background and pedigree. It was all kind of Oxbridge really in those days. A couple of guys gave me a chance to get into what was then Barclays, the Zoot Wed, BZW, which was acquired by Credit Suisse. So it's these moments where, we often don't think that we have the power to change people's lives, but we have a huge amount of social capital. Anyone watching this podcast is sitting on literally a treasure trove of social capital. And sometimes you can open that safe and sprinkle a bit on somebody. You don't have to go overboard with it. And you'd be surprised that, 5, 10, 2 years or 2 decades later, the impact it's had on people's lives. And people who did that for me changed my life. They're all pivotal moments.
And does that change how you think towards other people now? That piece of wisdom, that realization that those people that gave you a chance, does that feed into how you now approach the businesses you invest in, the type of people you work with, the people you want to give a chance to? Does that influence your thinking?
Yeah, it does. So I try and give back. So because my profile sometimes, it can be, you got to be slightly careful that, I'm not just bled dry because a lot of people are asking for help.
Yeah.
So I try and do it at scale really. So I've made courses, people to start businesses, because I got bored of being asking, not bored, but frustrated. We've been asked the same questions about how do I start a business and what's this and what's that. And I thought, isn't there some way you can go and do it? So I created a course. It's now on Udemy actually. And then, but I often kind of give that away though. And then I try and give back. So my only mentor I've ever really had is Sir Ken Alyssa. Sir Ken's the Lord Lieutenant of Greater London. And he's got he's got a coat of arms. And it says at the bottom of it, do well, do good. And I really believe in that. So I work with Sky quite closely. I'm on Sky's Diversity Advisory Council. One of the things I'm very focused on is social mobility, diversity. I always say that ambition is evenly distributed, okay? If you're from a difficult socioeconomic or ethnically a minority ethnic background, I'd say that in some ways there's more ambition because you want to get on. But generally, let's say it's evenly distributed. Access to capital, social capital, financial capital, economic capital, support, guidance isn't. So I spend a lot of my time trying to give back in places and in programs where you're helping people who are quite capable of getting on in life do exactly that.
And when you look at the UK, I mean, one of the things I've noticed as an entrepreneur and investor is it's really difficult to get going in the UK. That first 2 or 3 phases where you're starting a business. Whereas having lived in the States, it seems like the States is much more geared up to those first 2 or 3 phases of getting a business going. Do you recognize that? And do you see yourself having a role in helping fix, because, you've got a sphere of influence that could really help sort of those startup businesses. It doesn't feel like we have a startup culture in the UK. We don't value that ambition.
It's a fundamentally different culture. We always talk about let's create, a Silicon Valley here, Silicon Roundabout here, or you can't do it. It's a different mindset there. In the US, they'll throw $100 million or something on the with a 10% chance of it working out. You don't get that here. So raising risk capital in the UK is harder. There's no doubt about it. You don't have the same risk profile, the same amount of people that are willing to take that risk, and also the same amount of capital, So in terms of venture capital as well, and venture capital, let's face it, in Europe, venture capital dried up after the dot-com sort of crash for a decade or so. It's only really with, things like EAS and I'll just raise some money actually ourselves, SCIS from an SAS fund, SFC Capital. And it's only those kind of funds and entrepreneurs that are reinvesting where we've actually seen access to capital. Now, I was on the board of British Business Bank, and that was really there to fix or try and fix or do what it could do to the market inequality or where the market's not really working. And we have things like the Startup Loan Company. And what amazed me there, the Startup Loans Company, is that there are quite a few brands you know or love that exist because of that program. And the average loan, when I was there, it may have changed, was £7,000, right? So it's £7,000 between starting a business or not. And if you've got the right social capital, the parents, your background, your friends, your family, 7K, you can spend that. If it doesn't work out, you can go again. But often if you don't have that kind of money, you don't have it initially. And if you do cobble it together and it doesn't work out, you're not going again. And in the US, people are a lot more willing to back somebody that's failed. In fact, they're looking for that. They're looking for that badge, actually, because that means that you've learned something along the way. Whereas, we talk about this all the time in the UK. If you're a failure, you're almost branded with it. No one wants to speak to you. And I think that's a massive mistake. I've had many failures, too many to mention it on this podcast, and they're painful. And they still are. I started a business 3 years ago, spent 3 years working on it, raised money, put 3 years of my time into it, wasn't getting paid or anything. You still need income to pay the bills, and it just didn't work out. And you don't want to get out of bed for a week, but you go again.
And how do you pick yourself up in those moments? Because that's a real sort of mental strength you've got to have.
Yeah, I think initially it's kind of you think, oh, dare I raise my head again? Especially if you've got a profile, when things don't work out, it's can be quite difficult. But even if you haven't got a profile, it's that you feel like you've disappointed other people, your stakeholders, your investors, yourself, your partner who you haven't spoken to for 2 years because you've been working or missed holidays and bar mitzvahs and whatever it might be, birthdays, and you sort of just feel. I remember Sir Ken Alyssa. I was sat in his office. Something didn't really quite work out, and I was sat there going on and on about it. And he said to me, "Piers, self-pity does not become you." And I thought he's absolutely right, actually. It's just self-pity. Everyone that's involved knows what we're trying to do, knows the risk, and you were very open about it all the way through, even till the bitter end. And some people even were more supportive when things start to sort of hit the proverbial fan. So everyone's kind of in it together. And as long as you've done your best, you can look at people in the eye and say, look, I did my absolute best. That's the nature of the beast. You have to get up again, brush yourself down and go again and try and, do what's right and see people right. But sometimes you just can't.
Mm. I mean, going back, clearly a pivotal moment for you was starting your first business. How did that come about?
So there's no really one first business. So my first business, believe it or not, was a paper round. Everyone's had a paper round, right? But I had a paper round in the north of England, in the Pennines, where when it snowed in those days, you couldn't see your car. So I was doing 6 days a week for £5. I thought, this is nonsense. So my dad one morning said, look, on Sunday mornings, no one delivered a newspaper. And he said, can you go and get me a paper? And I was like, oh, okay. So I trudged down on my bike, it's about half a mile away to the paper shop, pick up the paper, deliver it to him. He gave me a bit of a tip. I thought, hang on a minute, there's something in this. To cut a very long story short, fly the neighbourhood, built a paper round, delivered Sunday papers, bought them wholesale from the wholesaler. So I cut out the newsagent. Obviously, I learned there'd be no margin. So I had to go one level down the supply chain. I delivered the papers and I made £20 for Sunday morning. A lot harder work, heavier bag, but I made more money. And I learned everything you need to know about business from that paper round. Customer success, keeping them happy, delivering a service, wholesale margins. And the thing I learned most of, which most people seem to forget these days, is it's just hard work and it graft. And, graft often is the difference between success and failure. So many people give up too easily.
Mm. And if we go back to your sort of point on risk in America and Europe, do you think the risk profile's got to change with the advent of AI? And that's clearly a pivotal moment for the whole world.
Yeah, so AI for me has been a pivotal moment. So you look at everything I've done. So that's my paper run, right? So the first business I kind of really, and then the first business I really started was in a placement agent. So I was placing US hedge fund money into special situations and small cap listed companies. I made a little bit of money there. And then I built a business in telecoms in mobile. We were the largest independent provider of B2B mobile solutions in the UK. And we sold that to a larger company in about 2013. So I made a bit of money then. And everything I've done really, so then I was then a Microsoft partner. We won the Microsoft hosting partner globally in 2010, I think it was. I had lunch with Steve Ballmer in the US.
That must
Lots
have
of
been
different things along the way. Yeah, I was interesting. He was a character, I can tell you. And he's kind of like, about 2 hours with us. He's like, you know what? At the end of it, he goes, I've got to go, but I love you Australians. It's funny. Yeah. But, so I did technology, cloud, a bit of a cloud pioneer. Got into that a little bit too early. Had to sell that business in a fire sale, which was a painful, pivotal moment in terms of, you keep putting things on red and they keep coming up red. You think you're a genius. And suddenly you put the thing on red and it comes up black and the things get quite complicated quite quickly. So AI, though, everything I've ever done to me points to this moment. And it's this moment where, I've got a newsletter on LinkedIn and I talk about it's not a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's a once in a species opportunity, this. And I really believe that. It sounds like I'm over-egging it, but I really think it is. And I think now I spent years, trying to sell cloud infrastructure rather than on-premise infrastructure. And then suddenly you can now build solutions on cloud infrastructure. You've got this sort of layer of, software you spend millions of pounds building across the top, SaaS applications, B2B SaaS. And now really the large language models enable you to talk to and construct technology. So I think in a way it's going to go away. Look at the SaaS market, software as a service. Why do you pay per seat? Because a human has to operate it, right? An AI agent now can operate, one agent almost could operate your whole SaaS suite, or one of them at least, maybe one for each and one above managing them. So they're going to collapse. So creating technology now is going to become, or is already, a lot easier. It's going to become a lot easier. And the difference here is that we're now productizing and commoditizing intelligence, right? Never done that before. It's been tools enabling, empowering, and augmenting human intelligence. And now we're replacing it. So when I was a trustee of Nesta, I was trustee of Nesta, the UK's largest innovation foundation, about 600 million endowment for 6 years. This is like 2017? Did some research on the impact of automation and robotics on the economy. And you can look at areas of the UK, say the northeast, I'm just picking, we'll make it up a little bit. There's a lot of call centres, for example. Call centres, right? People answering phones, outbound and inbound, is going away. So whole regions are going to be impacted by this technology. And the research summary was that the creative industries are the safest. And as well as I do, given what your business, that's not the case. You're probably better off being a masseuse, a chef, or a hairdresser. And even then, I'm not sure for how long. So AI is coming for all of us. It's not just admin assistants and taxi drivers. It's lawyers, doctors, surgeons, investment bankers, hedge fund managers, all those careers that I've been in. I've been a lawyer, I've got an accounting degree, I've been a hedge fund manager as well, another business I was in. All those are going to be really replaced by far better, cheaper, faster, and more capable technology. That will mean that starting a business becomes a lot easier, but competition is going to become more fierce. And my view is that the ones that get ahead early are going to stay ahead, because in an exponential world, playing catch up doesn't really work, because you can't. And that's why nation states are obsessed with it, because they know that if they get ahead, the competition can't catch up.
I mean, what advice would you give to, any CEO when it comes to sort of thinking about AI, other things, in order to get ahead? What sort of things should your CEO be making his or her New Year resolution this year when it comes to AI?
So we started a business with my co-founder. I'm a chairman. He's a CEO. Got implement AI, funnily enough, about 18 months ago. And that was because you could see that there's this huge wave coming in. And, Mustafa Suleyman, the founder of Google DeepMind, one of them, his book's called The Coming Wave. It's worth reading. And this wave coming in, and we thought, I've got to get into it. But how do you do it? How do you paddle into it? And you could invest in technology. But as far as you were looking at sectors that were sort of AI driven or opportunities, they were being disrupted or absorbed by the large language model companies themselves. He thought, well, hang on. So we thought, let's get into a bit of sort of consulting because I understand the technology. And then clients said to us, well, hang on a minute, that's great. Can you show us? We started doing pilots. Then the pilots are they're amazing. The ROI is huge. And they said, well, can we have it? So we're now building a business where we deploy what we call managed AI agents. So the advice is that what you can't do is sit on your hands because it's quite complicated. Most people and most companies, and I've been a banker, you model everything in the linear fashion, don't you? Everything's at 2%, 5%. We never think exponentially, okay? We never think about just completely rewriting your operational model. We call it the AI OS, AI operating system. You shouldn't be looking at the future with the structure of organizations that you have today. It's going to be completely different. So what we try and do is say, look, pick workflows, opportunities, blockers, growth opportunities, not just cost reduction. It's actually growth, actually creating growth, boosting revenue. Look at where the technology works. So like a 2x2 matrix, you've got the technology works today, then you've got the kind of technological frontier, and you've got the ROI. So look at where is an ROI and where does the tech work today, and start there. Because you can show your stakeholders that it works. If you want to do something that's complicated, that could create a huge ROI down the line, but the technology is not quite there yet, it will be in 6 or 12 months. So you could invest there. That's more R&D, so you might not get an immediate ROI. But focus where there's an ROI and start to automate. And as you go through the process, take your organization with you, set up a working group. But then what you want to start thinking about is, well, okay, rather than tweaking around the edges and kind of automating processes, there comes a point where you have to stop and say, okay, if we were to start again, what would this look like? We are going to see, augmented humans, workforces. Then eventually AI is going to replace a lot of what we do. And that will change massively everything you do. So AI agents, and we have agentic workflows, agentic teams, AI agents working together. They can do things at a pace that humans can't. They can do things that humans can't. We have agents that make outbound prospecting phone calls. We have one working for a large pharmacy chain that analyzes data. They've got 400 million in revenue. They found a £4 million revenue opportunity just from analysing data, because what the AI can do is see the unknown unknowns. So it's just very exciting. But whether you want to sort of rebuild your infrastructure, quite hard to do, or start automation, the advice is do something. Put a team together, cross-departmental, all levels, because you might see automation opportunities, or people who work for you may see automation opportunities that you don't. Put a team together and start just testing the technology and piloting it. And through that, you're going to learn the power of it and how transformative it can be.
And do you think it's still at the experiment, do something, fail, learn, or...
To some degree.
Yeah?
Yeah, to some degree. Going back to that 2x2 matrix, there's some things today is very good at, and it just works. It's fantastic. There are other things where the technology is not quite there yet. The thing that annoys me the most, people say, wow, every time it kind of advances, it does something amazing that humans can't do. People say, yeah, but it can't do this. And our answer is always, where was it 12 months ago, 24 months ago? And think of it in 12 months. AI today is the worst it's ever going to be. We have a podcast, right? It's called AI Assisted Organization on all good podcast platforms. And our job really is to keep up to date with what's going on in AI. And we struggle, and we do it all day long. So if generative AI development, R&D, research stopped today, there's probably 3 to 4 years of work to implement its current capability into the economic system. Yeah, if it keeps going, that's going to change an exponential pace. And I did a post the other day on my newsletter about super intelligence. I mean, Mark Altman, CEO of OpenAI, he's talking about the arrival of AGI and ASI, that's super intelligence, which means that this technology can do everything much better, much faster, and much cheaper than humans. And once you transpose this into robotics and the AI starts designing robotics in ways we don't understand, to be quite frank, then you've got embodied AI as well. So you're going to see it replace a lot of cognitive labor very quickly, more quickly than we think. Is it Amari's law? Technology, we always think it takes longer. It takes longer to adopt, but once it's adopted, it takes hold and changes things a lot faster than we expected. And then you're going to see it then start to displace human physical work as well. You know, humans won't be driving cars around conurbations by the time my daughter's my age, and you won't have humans working on building sites. You'll never get insurance.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I work with it an awful lot, and I found it a fantastically creative sparring partner. And, you know, when I'm doing my sort of creative brand work, it's just amazing. It's almost better than working with human beings. I can get to an idea, an answer faster.
Yeah, and you can infinitely iterate, can't you?
Yeah.
Before you might be saying to your clients, well, we can probably do 4 versions and have to charge you a bit more. Whereas now, the problem is you can infinitely iterate.
Yeah. The skill is figuring out which one works in which situation for the client. But as a creative partner, it's absolutely extraordinary.
And not just writing. I use it in writing as more like a sort of an editor or research. What would take me a day to write now, I can do in an hour, essentially, or 2 hours maybe. But it's images, it's stock images. Look at the video creation, text to video now. At Christmas time, I treated myself with a 3D printer. And I'm kind of like thinking, I've got to learn CAD. I haven't got time. And suddenly they've launched text to CAD.
Yeah.
So now I just say, okay, can you do some looks like this? And it creates it. I go, no, not really. Add this, add that, all the measurements. I've got a CAD, and I can just then literally download that and conjure it into existence in a 3D printer.
So you can sort of literally use speech and voice recognition to say, build me a model of a boat, and your 3D printer will do that. You don't have to learn. Yeah, that's extraordinary.
Don't have to learn CAD. I mean, it's just bonkers, isn't it? If you think about that. And all this stuff was impossible 6 months ago, definitely 12 months ago. And no one was even talking about it 24 months ago.
No.
So imagine where we're going to
used
be
it till last January, and now I'm on it probably 2 hours a day.
I'll go back to a question though. Your point about what's my advice? My advice actually is not just about your organisation. If you are not using Claude, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, whatever LLM you prefer, yourself, just like you are and I do, as a personal sidekick, sparring partner, research partner, you're missing out. You are not going to be the best person you can possibly be.
No, I mean, I think that's sage advice for every CEO, no matter whether you're running the biggest company on the planet. You've got to use it yourself, because you won't see the potential for your company unless you use it yourself, will you?
And also now you can provide huge context. When it started out, it was like, you could upload a paragraph, okay? You can now, with a prompt, upload the entire Harry Potter novel series. In fact, we're getting close to infinite sort of context. Yeah. Upload the whole thing and then ask it a question. And if you slip some sentence in there in the middle of a Harry Potter, the whole series about, I don't know, a phaser from Star Trek, you'll know it's there. It never used to. It all got a bit woolly in the middle. Yeah. But now they're very, very good. So when you're talking about, say, a huge organisation, you can upload any data you want to, and then you can talk to it. Or tell me, one thing you should do, I posted on this on about New Year's Day, I think it was. Maybe you use it a lot. If you use it a lot already, go in there and say, tell me something about myself you don't think I know.
Yeah.
And from that, tell me how I should use that information for self-improvement. It's insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've had a little thing go around the company where everybody's asked AI to create an image of what they think their work environment is. And it's extraordinary how, one of our directors lives on a small farm out near Newbury, and it created an image of her working with sheep outside the door. And how did it know that? I mean, it's extraordinary how it's tuned in.
Well, what it has, which we don't have, humans, is almost infinite and memory with perfect recall.
Yeah.
And in organizations, one of the biggest things that's been troubling everybody for decades, right, is big data and this whole complexity of unstructured information and structured information. The most important unstructured data we have now is conversations. So whether it's videos, meetings, whatever it might be, telephone conversations with clients, customers, support conversations, whatever it might be, is you can now take those conversations, and the AI means you can understand everything about them, all the nuance, sentiment analysis, just the basic facts that are in these calls, and then you can use that. You couldn't do that before. Parsing it using robotic process automation or whatever, which is also going to go away, was very difficult to do. So now what you have is this structured database, maybe your CRM, and above that now, you can have a vectorized database, which is one AI works on, a 3D database, which understands this data, can extract it, put it together with the data you already have, and create massively and very uniquely personalized content and communications.
Mm. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about AI, but I probably should go back to another pivotal moment in your life, which was becoming part of the Dragon's Den team. I'm sure everybody's going to be fascinated to hear, was that like a great experience?
Yeah, so I was asked to be a mentor for the government in 2008, I think it was. And through that, I had this company and a bit of a profile, made a bit of money. I was asked to be a Secret Millionaire on Channel 4. So Channel 4 was one of those programs that people you kind of saw or didn't. It was my 15 minutes of fame, really. Although I did meet a young lad there who was in prison, 19 years old, got 11 years, quite serious offences, but great lad. I said, what are you in prison for? Going back to the thing we said earlier, when he came out, I mentored him a little bit. Didn't mollycoddle him, mentored him a little bit, gave him his first rent guarantee, things like that, gave him a job, made him redundant, which was quite awkward. And then he went into business, and we've been friends ever since. I've been like the uncle he never had. And now he earns about over 100 grand a year as a cloud infrastructure architect. So that just shows you, if you deflect someone's life, 10 years down range, they're somewhere very, very different. Anyway, through that, I was spotted to be asked to be on Dragon's Den. And the first year, I wasn't sure about it. I thought, do I want to be a celebrity? I'm busy. Wasn't really. It didn't happen, actually. And the second year, I was actually away at Ulu Saba with Sir Richard Branson at his private game reserve, because I think I gave some money to his charity, Virgin Unite. And I was thinking, who do I talk to about the media and business and combining the two? You know where this is going. So this is a true story. And then he said to me, you kind of all right? And I said, yeah, they keep ringing me about something. What is it? And I explained it all to him. And he said to me, screw it. You should do it. You'd be good at it. Not many people like you on TV. I used to get on a plane to do a TV news spot. Get on with it. And I thought, okay. I was kind of wandering away with my corona. And he said, no. And he got me to ring the producer back there and then and say, I'm in. So I ended up on Dragon's Den. And from that moment, really, I think you met the producers once for chit-chat. And then you're basically in the den. That was it. A bit of makeup. I said a lot of makeup in my case. And then these entrepreneurs start coming out. You know nothing about them. You don't stop filming. Obviously, what happens in there probably takes up to 2 hours, maybe. And you see maybe 15 minutes. So they are editing it into a story. So you may say that Piers did not invest because he didn't like the brand. It was because it was a subsidiary of a Canadian, company that, you couldn't actually invest in. So it'd be some complicated legal reason why he didn't invest, not the reason they show on TV. You may have mentioned it. So it's like the film Sliding Doors, where there's two alternate universes. One is they record it, they go and make a TV show, but then you actually make an angel investment in that business. Lawyers, accountants, probably a third don't work out because there's sometimes they're not interested in working out actually. Or
do you think going on Dragon's Den was a benefit to you, sort of longer term?
It's got its downsides.
Yeah.
Downsides are everyone thinks they know you when they don't. They know a caricature of you that was on TV. But I say overall, it's opened doors. I've got to do things that I probably wouldn't otherwise been able to do. Certain things I've done, maybe being on the board of the government bank, whatever it might be. The profile's helps in philanthropy and giving back in terms of leveraging that profile to do some good with it. But the downside is sometimes, you're with your kids and you're trying to have some quiet time and, someone's not interested in letting you do that. They want to do a selfie with you and typically, you just give them the time. But often people stop me everywhere and say, listen, have you got a minute? Because I've got this business. And he wants some advice.
That was
And I can help myself. I'm always like, okay. And I'll give everyone sort of 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's very
So
generous.
overall, it's been a positive, but it can have its downsides.
Yeah. Now, I know both you and I are sort of passionate about inspiring a better Britain, and we both know each other from sort of sitting on the advisory board of Anthropy. What made you get involved in Anthropy?
So one was John, really, and his sort of passion for it. John's the founder of Anthropy. And this was back in the days during COVID when we were all on Clubhouse doing his audio. We were on these different like audio meetings and events we were doing. And I did some and he joined them, and he did some and I joined them. And he got talking about Anthropy. And I said, that's a fantastic idea. And then it didn't really dawn on me really about what a great idea it was until we did the first one. So every Anthropy, there's one main event, was at the Eden Project in Cornwall. So you have these amazing sort of mix of people there from all sorts of walks of lives and backgrounds, third sector, private sector, government. And I got to meet people and have conversations I would never otherwise have. And I was having dinner with some famous conservationists, and another one was a famous musician or something like that. I met some of your colleagues there on my table as well. There was amazing conversations, and you see these things like Davos, and it's not really a Davos, but it's about bringing together people that care about the country and bringing together your experience, your networks and your ideas and combining them. And hopefully 1 and 1 + 1 = 3. And then the job then obviously is then to take that power and then disseminate it into the economy and do something with it. And I think it's still early days for Anthropy. I think we'll look up to Anthropy 3 in March. So I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to become a real powerhouse for the UK. And if you're not involved yet, and you're watching us in this podcast, you should get down there and experience it.
No, I couldn't agree more. Now, we always end these podcasts with a little fun fact. Now, I think I heard a story that your first name is actually Jonathan and Piers is your middle name. It's unusual to use your middle name. So how did you go from being Jonathan to becoming Piers?
So my name is Jonathan Piers Daniel Linney. Daniel's my sort of West Indian name, mum's maiden name. And then everyone called me Jonathan. And then I was doing my A-levels and I wanted to do law. So I had to do the nights. So I had to take a year out. I thought, what do I do? And I was approached to be a model, believe it or not, in Manchester, right? In Manchester. So, I was in the Sharp catalogue. I did some fashion shows at the Hacienda, which is like a famous nightclub, if you know it. It depends on how old you are about the Hacienda.
That's wild.
And then I made some money out of it. It was okay. So I was getting like 200 quid a day, I think it was. But the guy who owned the agency said, what's your name? I goes, it's Jonathan. What's your full name? Jonathan Piers. He goes, oh, no. Use Piers. It's much better. And I thought, yeah, whatever. So I was Piers. But then I got a place at Manchester University. So now everyone in Manchester knows me as Piers. And now at Manchester University, I'm literally my first day, the first lecture I ever did in economics. I'm in this big sort of like lecture theatre, auditorium. And someone says to me, hello, what's your name? And I remember to this day thinking, oh, what is my name?
That's the pivotal moment.
I'm in Manchester. And I said, it's Piers. And I've been Piers ever since.
Yeah. And have you grown to love it?
Yeah, I'm Piers. I think of myself as Piers.
Yeah.
My mum just called me Jonathan. My West Indian family, Barbados, still call me John Piers.
Yeah.
My brother struggles with it. He calls me Jonathan still, sometimes Piers. But it doesn't sound natural coming out from him. But my daughters, I'm Piers.
Yeah.
My partner, my ex-wife, I'm Piers. So I am Piers, but that's definitely a fun fact.
Well, Piers Linney, thank you very, very much. That was fantastic. And I think people will take that advice on AI, and I hope the CEOs listening to this sort of actually delve into it and start using it.
They can reach out to us if they want help with AI, obviously.
Yeah. No, well, thank you so much for giving us your time, and have a fantastic rest of the day.
You too, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pivot Points. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more fascinating conversations with industry leaders in our previous episodes. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to know more about BrandPie and how we deliver impact in the pivotal moments that matter to you, head over to brandpie.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.